You did an interesting piece on propaganda and how propaganda isn't exactly what people think that it is intuitively. We kind of have this sense that propaganda is they'll be marching people on the streets and playing patriotic music, but that actually propaganda is, well, you go ahead and explain what it was. I thought that was a good explanation.
Yeah, this was based on a paper from Haifeng Huang, who's a political science professor somewhere in California. The name of the university, I don't recall, but his claim, and he backs it up with some empirical data as well, but the general idea is that we tend to think of propaganda as brainwashing, right? So the communist regime shows all of these images and sort of reminds you to act in a certain way. If you go to North Korea, everywhere you look, there's just propaganda everywhere. And the idea is that, like, oh, the regime is brainwashing its citizens so that they all believe in the same ideology. But what this paper claimed, it was called propaganda signaling. And the idea is that actually, although that's one goal of the regime is brainwashing, another goal, at least as important as that one, is basically to signal power. The idea is that if you're able to show a certain kind of, political propaganda in the public square, everywhere you look, every time you turn on the TV, every time you, open your phone, you sort of see the same ideology everywhere. It's not that you're suddenly thinking like, well, maybe this is true. What you're really thinking is, this regime is strong. This regime is powerful. I better not try to push back against it. It's sort of a costly signal. It's a demonstration of the regime that they have the resources and the ability and the sort of, just the capacity to bombard you with their ideology so that you are too timid and too afraid to challenge it. And the way that he backed this up empirically, he basically just collected data from a bunch of Chinese citizens and asked them questions about, I think, Chinese communism or something like that. And then he asked them questions about how strong they believe in the regime. And what he found was that people who knew more about Chinese communism were not necessarily more prone to believing in all of the claims, but were more prone to believe that the regime was strong. And so I just found that idea fascinating. It's maybe a little counterintuitive, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, and in many ways, it reminds me of 1984, how the people that are in the outer party are completely invested in the news of the day and what's going on. And it isn't until you meet the Poles, just working class people, they don't have all the fancy life, but they have nobody observing them. They don't have to worry about the surveillance state, which it's like, in a way, when you make the observation of the ads that are going out there, I was at first struck when you were talking about all around in my neighborhood, there are giant billboards about wearing a mask. And it's funny because it's like, well, nobody doesn't know that right now. So why would you continue to put these things up? And it really is as a public service announcement. And then that got me thinking, when I was working in public radio, you had to run a certain number of hours of public service announcements, and they were generally for like good causes that everybody could agree to. But one of the things that was a key feature to running a public service announcement that was paid for by the government would pay you to put these things on, is that you would have to leave on that part that said, this part was sponsored by the National Ad Council. And you just don't realize that is like the stamp audio that says, this is the government saying what we want to you, getting our ideas to you.
Right. Yeah, that's I mean, yeah, when I was reading that paper and writing about it, I couldn't help but connect it to, some of the what we're seeing here in like the Western world, right? I mean, ostensibly we're supposed to be this free country. There's no dictator, right? There's no like Mao or Stalin or whatever, but there is, I think there is a sort of roughly shared belief system among the highly educated class. And so even though there's no like top down, I think there can be a sort of bottom up formation about what beliefs we should all adhere to, and to sort of, share the images and belief systems and try to get everyone else to understand that like, this is what you should be believing. And one way to ensure this is to target dissenters. One interesting idea that I had read, this idea of cancel culture, which I've written about and discussed, is the way that cancel culture will often target people who, maybe necessarily can't be completely canceled, at least. So people like J.K. Rowling, or people like the Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker, like these are people who are already very well established, have so much reputational capital and wealth and so on, that you can maybe get them in the news for a couple of days, but you're not going to take them off of their perch. But one thing you can do by doing this is send a signal to everyone else, right? So if Steven Pinker says X, Y, and Z, and everyone says, how dare he say that? It gets in the news for a couple of days. Twitter goes crazy. How dare Steven, whatever. He's going to be fine, right? Like, he's a tenured professor, best-selling author, whatever. But what you're doing is you're sending a message to all of the onlookers that, if you try to say those things, your life will be destroyed, right? Because most of us aren't at that level, right? So if I were to say it, or you were to say, or anyone else, then you can really get your life ruined. And so it's not about canceling Pinker. It's about reminding everyone else what they're allowed to say.
Have you had anybody try and remind you what you're not allowed to say?
I don't think so. I've been pretty lucky. I block a lot of people on Twitter, man. Like, anyone who is snarky or insulting or doesn't add value, I just do an insta block. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had anyone come after me in that way.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like these interviews, just go ahead and check out the full thing, and don't forget to subscribe to the VCP channel. Also, if you're interested in having conversations like these, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. You can find out more by going to network.articulate.ventures.